The sirens wailed through the pines, slicing the quiet dusk like a knife. My heart sank as I peered through the cabin window, watching two police cruisers pull up to our lakeside retreat. My guests, a young family of 4 and their grandfather, Mr. Ellison, stood frozen on the porch, their faces a mix of confusion and fear. I'd rented them my cabin for a weekend of fishing and bonding, a rare escape for a family who'd lost so much. But now, Karen, the HOA president, stood smugly by the squad cars, her designer coat gleaming under the fading sun, her lips curled into a triumphant sneer. She'd called the cops, claiming my guests were trespassers, violating her precious community rules. The accusation was absurd, but Karen's word was law in Pinewood Estates, sir. So she thought. I stepped outside, my boots crunching on the gravel, and faced her. Karen, they're my guests. I have the rental agreement right here. I waved the paperwork, but she barely glanced at it, her manicured nails flicking dismissively. This is a private community, she snapped, her voice dripping with condescension. Your little Airbnb scheme doesn't belong here. I protect property values. Her eyes raked over the family. Lila, the exhausted single mom, her 2 kids clutching their fishing rods, and Mr. Ellison, a frail 78-year-old with a cane, who looked like he might collapse under the weight of her glare. Karen had already trashed their picnic setup, scattering their cooler and chairs across the lawn in a fit of rage before the police arrived. The kids were crying, and Lila was trying to explain to the officers, her voice shaking. I'd had enough of Karen's reign of terror, but this was a new low. The truth began to unravel as I dug deeper into Karen's accusations. She claimed the family was disturbing the peace with their laughter and fishing, but neighbors told a different story. Mrs. Carter, a quiet widow who lived across the lake, pulled me aside later that night. Karen's been after your cabin for months, she whispered, her eyes darting nervously. She wants to buy it cheap, says it's an eyesore. She's been spying on your guests, taking photos, building a case. It turned out Karen had been harassing every renter I'd hosted, filing complaints about noise or litter that never existed. She'd even bribed a groundskeeper to plant fake Evidencia broken bottle near the cabin to justify her complaints. But Mrs. Carter had seen it all and kept photos of Karen's sabotage, including her kicking over the family's cooler that very afternoon. The twist? Mrs. Carter wasn't just a bystander, she was Mr. Ellison's estranged sister, who'd moved to Pinewood to reconnect with him after decades apart. Her unexpected testimony changed everything, giving us a weapon we didn't know we had. The confrontation came at the next HOA meeting, held in the community center under harsh fluorescent lights. Karen sat at the head of the table, her usual throne radiating smug confidence. I walked in with Lila, Mr. Ellison, and Mrs. Carter, who clutched a folder of evidence. The room buzzed with tension as neighbors filled the seats, some loyal to Karen, others fed up with her tyranny. I laid out the facts, the rental agreement, the false police report, and Karen's pattern of harassment. Then Mrs. Carter stood, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Karen's been lying to you all, she said, holding up photos of Karen vandalizing my cabin's porch. Gasps rippled through the room. Karen's face turned crimson, her composure cracking. This is outrageous, she shrieked, slamming her fist on the table. These people are outsiders. They don't belong. But Mr. Ellison, frail but fierce, rose with his cane. You called the police on my grandchildren, he said, his voice low and cutting. You terrorized my family. And I'm not just a guest, I'm a retired judge. The room fell silent. Karen's eyes widened, her arrogance melting into panic. Karen's downfall was swift and brutal. Mr. Ellison, with his decades of legal expertise, filed a formal complaint for harassment and defamation, backed by Mrs. Carter's photos and testimony from other neighbors who'd grown tired of Karen's bullying. The HOA board, pressured by the mounting evidence, held an emergency vote to remove her as president. She tried to fight back, hurling insults and threatening lawsuits, but her allies abandoned her, unwilling to risk their own reputations. The court case that followed was a spectacle. Karen, dressed in her usual ostentatious finery, sat defiantly in the courtroom, but Mr. Ellison's testimony was devastating. He presented a restraining order, barring Karen from contacting my guests or me, and the judge's former colleague ordered her to pay damages for emotional distress and property damage. The final blow? The HOA banned her from holding any position of power again. Her reign was over, her influence shattered. The cabin, once her target, became a symbol of her defeat. In the end, the lake sparkled under a clear sky again. Lila and her kids returned for another weekend, this time with Mr. Ellison and Mrs. Carter, who laughed together by the water, mending their long-broken bond. The community felt lighter, freer, as neighbors began to challenge the petty rules Karen had enforced. I rebuilt the porch, stronger than before, and hung a small wooden sign by the door. Welcome to freedom. Justice had prevailed, not just for me, but for everyone Karen had tried to control. Her story is a reminder that power built on lies and cruelty never lasts. What do you think? Where do you draw the line between protecting a community and abusing authority? Share your thoughts.